Thank you for listening today on Revealing Wholeness, sponsored by Infinity Whole Health. Check out our website at infinityWholeHealth.com, where we are revealing the eternal in each individual, the infinite in the individual. The creativity is made manifest. Limitation is let go. Now, here's your host, Dr. Troy Munson.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy Munson. And one of my favorite topics is something that is so profound for so many people, and it's raw apple cider vinegar. And if you have a passion for it, maybe you're out there and you make it, or maybe this is your first hearing of anything about raw apple cider vinegar. Like, I heard you should take raw apple cider vinegar. I'm not sure what the kick is here. Well, let me tell you, it is a profound thing. The number one thing for raw apple cider vinegar really is its potassium content. It is an amazing source of potassium. But more than that, and you might have people say, well, I've seen the statistics on raw apple cider vinegar. It doesn't have that much potassium in it. Well, when you have potassium with other minerals, and it is in a completely usable form, it's actually synergistic. And if you ever look at synergy, we have just regular mathematics as 1 + 1 = 2. But synergy is when 1 and 1 can equal 50, 100, 1,000. And so synergy is a very powerful concept. When we take nutrients in the correct mode or manner or amounts, and they're with all of their constituents, we have some profound effects that go on almost immediately. So with raw apple cider vinegar, the common thing people ask me is, well, how much? Well, to maintain normal digestive function, which is what most people think raw apple cider vinegar is for, and it is going to acidify the stomach. It's going to start repairing the stomach. It's going to go down and help as a probiotic in the gut. But ultimately, the question still remains, how much? What do I do? Do I do a bottle a day? Do I do just a sip? And to maintain normal function, about 2 teaspoons per meal in a small glass of water, maybe 4 ounces. That would be enough. We don't want to do much more than 4 ounces of fluid per meal. We don't want to dilute the enzyme activity in the stomach that you have. So even doing, let's say a teaspoon in 2 ounces, 3 ounces of water before your meal, and just begin to wash the stomach and, let it go down into the gut, great. But here's something profound. Now, back when they would actually talk about animal studies and do things to varmints and critters, they would literally take and show that when you put a worm on the ground and you pour raw apple cider vinegar over it, it'll writhe as if in pain. It will stop moving. It will turn gray and die because it's literally killing it because of the acid. And here's the reason why I tell you that short story. It's like, oh my gosh, the poor worm. I kind of felt that when I read it. I was like, oh, it's horrible. But this is written back in the 50s, 1950s, if this is years from now when people are wondering, is this 2050? But in 1950s, it was written. And what they showed is that they would have routinely people write in. And DC Jarvis, that did a lot of this work, which was just phenomenal. I loved his stuff. But he talks about these individuals that would be going out to eat, and they had a weak digestive system. So they were doing raw apple cider vinegar. And they would go out and they would eat a meal, like let's say fish, and they thought, something was wrong with that fish. And everybody at the table ate the same fish. And they said, I'm going to drink some raw apple cider vinegar. And so they would take 2 or 3 teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon, and drink it. Everybody else at the table that was eating that fish would be vomiting within 2 hours. But the people that took raw apple cider vinegar never had an issue, never had a disturbance of their bowel. Why? Because just like that worm, it literally goes and kills all the bugs, so to speak, on any tainted meat. So one of the things that people will do is they'll make bone broth, and they'll make their own. If you're making your own bone broth and you're doing a good job, you'll take bones with the marrow, totally raw. Maybe it's a leg bone, maybe it's a knee joint of a cow, whatever, and you throw it in a pot. And you fill it up just to barely cover it with water. And then you pour in a 1/4 cup of raw apple cider vinegar. Maybe you chop up some leek or some onion, some garlic, some carrots, whatever you want, you throw in there. And you just let it sit, not heating it, not boiling it, but maybe a couple, 3 hours. Just let the raw apple cider vinegar go to work on the vegetables and go to work on the bone, the protein within the bone, the marrow, all of it. Then you bring slowly, ever so slowly, that pot up to a simmer. You might just keep it on low, on heat, for about 24 hours. Then you turn it off. And you could heat it up if you wanted to, but you could just go by and take a 1/4 cup and drink a 1/4 cup of the bone broth. It would be excellent source of calcium, phosphorus, trace minerals, potassium. I mean, it's wonderful. It is a phenomenal thing to do. And many people are buying bone broth from the store instead of making their own. But it will never be as good as making your own. So you can buy the stuff out of the store, but I recommend that you really do consider making your own. And it is the raw apple cider vinegar that does a great, phenomenal job. Let's say that you want to tenderize a steak. Soak in some raw apple cider vinegar. Now some people are like, yeah, but it kind of changes the flavor of the meat. It might a little bit, but you might be adding too much. You could just put it on in a little baggie, maybe 2 teaspoons, and just let it start to soften it. Great. Then you add, your oil, salt, and pepper, and go slowly cook your steak. It's beautiful. My gosh, it's so good. So just some things you can do, but raw apple cider vinegar will get you out of trouble in a lot of different ways. Now, the trouble is that we travel somewhere on a plane, you can't take hardly any liquid with you. So you're kind of stuck going to the store wherever you get and buying yourself a small bottle of raw apple cider vinegar, and then just taking a teaspoon, tablespoon, a couple, 3 times a day, wherever you're at in your vacation, and just keeps your digestion right as rain. Especially those people going to Mexico, they're like, don't drink the water. You know what? You could add it to your water, and you'd probably be just fine. And so there's some ideas there for helping that. So just to give you an idea of what raw apple cider vinegar has in it, it has obviously the potassium, but it has phosphorus, chlorine, sodium, magnesium, some calcium, some sulfur, iron, fluorine, not fluoride, silicone, and other trace minerals. Now, when you're making your own, you should use the entire apple. You should crush it up and use the whole thing because we want all of it. And so some companies don't use the peel. Well, if it's not organic, I can see why they're not using the peel because there's a lot of residue on it. So even an organic raw apple cider vinegar is ideal. And it should actually say on the bottle, that they do use the whole apple and they crush it up. We've always made cider, and cider is phenomenal, but raw apple cider vinegar should be done somewhat the same way as cider. You're just cutting up the apple, throwing it in there, pressing it, and then you're just simply now fermenting that raw apple cider. So as you do that, you'll find that it's probably better when you make it than what you get in the store. I find it to be so because I have clients that will make it for me and they'll bring me in a bottle, and it tastes so much better. Some people are like, oh my gosh, I can't stomach raw apple cider vinegar. I say, well, I know, but that's where the fresh stuff really does make a difference. And so if you can get somebody who does make it, if you can get it fresh, oh my gosh, that is the only way to go. So I hope this helps with raw apple cider vinegar. I hope it kind of opens up some ideas about it and how to use it. You can use it in so many different circumstances. If you're even worried about maybe this piece of meat's been sitting out too long, maybe this piece of fish, you can totally douse it in raw apple cider vinegar and you can just kill everything and go ahead and cook it. So these are ideas that start sharing them. And if you know uses of raw apple cider vinegar that I have not mentioned, by all means, shoot me a text, throw me an email. Love to hear from you about your uses of raw apple cider vinegar. And so until next time, I'm Dr. Troy Munson on Revealing Wholeness.
The information on Dr. Troy Munson's podcast is meant to educate the listener and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease.